Signal detected. In the spring of 2025, NSA Cyber operations uncovered one of the most sophisticated espionage networks ever to penetrate American technology infrastructure. The operation had been running for 7 years. It had compromised 14 major defense contractors, 6 semiconductor manufacturers, and 3 artificial intelligence research laboratories. The stolen intellectual property was valued at over $900 billion. But the theft was only part of the operation. What NSA Cyber discovered in the intercepted communications revealed something far more dangerous: a coordinated plan to sabotage critical defense systems during a potential military confrontation. This is the story of how signal intelligence exposed a shadow war being waged inside America's most sensitive facilities. The first indication came from an unusual signal pattern detected by NSA monitoring systems in January 2025. Communications traffic between servers at a major semiconductor facility in Arizona and an unidentified relay station showed characteristics consistent with covert data exfiltration. The traffic was encrypted using a custom protocol that NSA analysts had never encountered before. Initial analysis suggested state-level sophistication. The encryption was layered, adaptive, and designed to mimic normal business communications. NSA Cyber initiated a dedicated effort to break the encryption. For 11 weeks, cryptanalysts worked to identify vulnerabilities in the protocol. The breakthrough came when analysts discovered that the encryption keys were being updated using a pattern derived from atmospheric noise measurements at a specific location in East Asia. Once the key generation pattern was understood, NSA Cyber began decoding historical traffic. What emerged from those decoded communications changed the scope of the investigation entirely. The semiconductor facility was just one node in a vast espionage network. Intercepted communications revealed coordination between intelligence operatives embedded in 14 different American technology companies. The network had been operational since 2018. It was controlled by a unit of the People's Liberation Army Strategic Support Force, China's military cyber and space warfare branch. The scale of the theft was staggering. Decoded messages documented the exfiltration of complete design specifications for next-generation military semiconductors. These chips were intended for use in advanced weapons systems, including hypersonic missile guidance, satellite communications, and autonomous combat vehicles. One intercepted report to Beijing detailed the intelligence value. Complete fabrication specifications obtained, 7-year development advantage eliminated, production capability timeline, 18 months. But the chip designs were only the beginning. As NSA Cyber decoded more communications, the full scope of the network became clear. Operatives had penetrated research laboratories developing artificial intelligence systems for military applications. They had accessed databases containing classified defense contractor communications. They had obtained source code for cybersecurity systems protecting critical infrastructure. One decoded message summarized the operation's achievements. Phase 1 complete. 14 facilities compromised. Estimated intelligence value, $940 billion. Technological parity achieved in 7 critical domains. The communications also revealed how the network operated. Chinese intelligence had recruited insiders at each compromised facility. Some were Chinese nationals who had immigrated to the United States and obtained positions at sensitive companies. Others were American citizens who had been compromised through financial inducements, ideological manipulation, or coercion involving family members in China. The network used sophisticated tradecraft to avoid detection. Communications were routed through multiple relay stations across 6 countries. Data was exfiltrated in small packets disguised as routine business traffic. Operatives used code words and references that required deep cultural knowledge to interpret correctly. One intercepted conversation between a handler and an operative illustrated the methodology. The autumn harvest was excellent this year. The western fields produced beyond expectations. When will the grain be transported? Thursday. The usual route. 3 shipments. NSA analysts determined that autumn harvest referred to stolen semiconductor designs. Western fields indicated the Arizona facility, and grain transportation meant data exfiltration scheduled for Thursday through 3 separate covert channels. The decoded communications revealed something even more alarming than intellectual property theft. The network had been instructed to prepare for what Beijing called contingency operations. These instructions, intercepted over several months, outlined a plan to sabotage American defense systems in the event of military conflict over Taiwan. One decoded directive was explicit. Upon activation signal, all embedded assets will execute disruption protocols. Primary targets: guidance systems, communication networks, supply chain databases. Objective: 48-hour degradation of military response capability. The operatives had not only stolen technology, they had installed hidden vulnerabilities in systems they had helped develop. Backdoors that could be activated remotely, kill switches that could disable critical components, malware that could corrupt data at the moment it was most needed. NSA Cyber mapped the full extent of the sabotage preparations. The findings were shared with the FBI Counterintelligence Division, the Department of Defense, and the intelligence community leadership. The network had compromised systems used by the United States Navy, Air Force, and Space Force. Weapons guidance systems, satellite communication protocols, logistics databases, and cybersecurity defenses all contained hidden vulnerabilities that could be exploited during conflict. One intercepted communication from Beijing to the network coordinator outlined the strategic objective. American military advantage depends on technological superiority. When that superiority fails at the critical moment, the correlation of forces shifts decisively. This is the purpose of 7 years of patient work. The timeline for potential activation was also revealed in intercepted communications. Chinese military planners had identified a window of maximum vulnerability. Analysis of American political cycles, military deployment patterns, and supply chain dependencies had produced a specific time frame when sabotage operations would be most effective. That window was scheduled to open in 14 months. NSA Cyber faced a complex challenge. The espionage network had to be dismantled, but doing so would reveal American signals intelligence capabilities. The sabotage preparations had to be neutralized, but the operatives could not be allowed to know they had been detected before the full scope of their activities was understood. A coordinated counter-operation was developed involving NSA, FBI, Department of Defense, and the intelligence agencies of key allies who had also been targeted by the same network. The operation would proceed in phases over several months. Phase 1 involved continued signals intelligence collection to identify all network members and compromised systems. NSA Cyber maintained surveillance of all known communication channels, decoding every message and mapping every connection. During this phase, analysts identified 47 operatives embedded in American technology companies. They documented 312 instances of data exfiltration. They located 19 hidden vulnerabilities installed in defense-related systems. The intelligence gathered was extraordinary in its detail. NSA Cyber obtained the complete organizational structure of the espionage network, the identities of handlers in China, the communication protocols used for different types of operations, and the specific plans for sabotage activation. One decoded message provided the activation code that would trigger sabotage operations. "The dragon rises with the eastern wind." This phrase, transmitted through specific channels, would signal all embedded operatives to execute their disruption protocols. Phase 2 began in June 2025. Working from NSA intelligence, FBI counterintelligence teams began the process of neutralizing the network without alerting its controllers in Beijing. The approach was surgical. Rather than arresting operatives immediately, agents worked to identify and remove the hidden vulnerabilities they had installed. Cybersecurity teams, briefed on the specific backdoors and kill switches, quietly patched systems while maintaining the appearance of normal operations. This phase required extraordinary coordination. Defense contractors had to be informed of compromises in their systems without revealing the full scope of NSA collection capabilities. Military units had to implement security updates without indicating awareness of the sabotage threat. Technology companies had to enhance their security postures without alerting embedded operatives. Throughout this phase, NSA Cyber continued monitoring communications between the network and its controllers. The intercepted traffic showed no indication that Beijing was aware of the counter-operation. One message from the network coordinator to handlers was particularly revealing. All systems nominal. Assets report no security concerns. Contingency preparations proceeding according to schedule. Phase 3 was the most delicate. With vulnerabilities removed and intelligence collection complete, the operatives themselves had to be neutralized. The challenge was timing. If operatives were arrested simultaneously, the coordinated action would reveal the scope of American intelligence penetration. If arrests were staggered, early detentions might alert remaining operatives and their handlers. NSA Cyber developed a solution based on intercepted communications patterns. Analysts identified that the network conducted regular security checks in which handlers verified operative status. By timing arrests to coincide with normal communication gaps, the counter-operation could proceed without triggering immediate alarm in Beijing. On September 15, 2025, FBI agents executed simultaneous arrest warrants for 34 of the 47 identified operatives. The remaining 13 had already left the country or were operating under diplomatic cover that prevented immediate arrest. The arrests were conducted quietly, without media notification. Operatives were taken into custody on a variety of charges designed to obscure the counterintelligence nature of the operation. Some were charged with export control violations. Others faced fraud charges. A few were detained on immigration violations. The strategy was effective. Intercepted communications from Beijing in the days following the arrests showed confusion rather than alarm. Multiple assets have missed scheduled contacts. Technical difficulties suspected. Investigating. It took Chinese intelligence services 11 days to recognize that their network had been compromised. By then, the damage assessment was complete. NSA Cyber had identified and neutralized all known sabotage preparations in American defense systems. The hidden vulnerabilities, backdoors, and kill switches had been removed. The intelligence stolen over 7 years could not be recovered, but the immediate threat to military systems had been eliminated. The counter-operation also provided invaluable intelligence about Chinese espionage methodology. Communication protocols, recruitment techniques, tradecraft patterns, and strategic objectives were all documented for future counterintelligence efforts. In the months following the arrests, additional information emerged about the scope of the prevented threat. Military analysts calculated the potential impact of the sabotage operations if they had been activated during conflict. The assessment was sobering. Weapons guidance system compromises could have caused 34% of precision munitions to miss their targets or fail entirely. Communication network backdoors could have disrupted coordination between naval vessels, aircraft, and ground forces for up to 72 hours. Supply chain database corruption could have delayed critical logistics for weeks. The cumulative effect would have been a significant degradation of American military capability at the precise moment it was most needed. In a conflict scenario over Taiwan, such degradation could have been decisive. One defense analyst summarized the prevented threat. We're talking about the difference between a quick, decisive response and a prolonged, costly engagement. The sabotage preparations we discovered could have cost thousands of American lives and potentially changed the outcome of a major conflict. The intellectual property theft, while not recoverable, was also assessed in detail. Chinese acquisition of advanced semiconductor designs accelerated their domestic chip production capabilities by an estimated 5 to 7 years. Military applications of this technology would enhance Chinese weapons systems significantly. However, the exposure of the espionage network disrupted Chinese intelligence operations across multiple domains. Recruitment efforts were compromised, communication channels were exposed, tradecraft patterns were documented. NSA Cyber's signals intelligence work had prevented immediate catastrophe while providing strategic advantages that would persist for years. The 47 operatives identified in the investigation represented the largest Chinese espionage network ever uncovered in the United States. The $900 billion in stolen intellectual property was the largest documented theft in history. The sabotage preparations were the most dangerous covert threat to American military capability ever detected. All of it was discovered through signal intelligence, the custom encryption protocol that Chinese intelligence believed was unbreakable, was broken through 11 weeks of dedicated cryptanalysis. The covert communications that coordinated 7 years of espionage were intercepted and decoded. The sabotage preparations that could have crippled American defense systems were exposed before activation. This is the power of signal intelligence. This is what NSA Cyber accomplishes. In the invisible world of encrypted communications, espionage networks believe they are safe. They believe their messages cannot be read. They believe their operations cannot be detected. They believe their plans will succeed. They are wrong. Every signal can be intercepted. Every encryption can be analyzed. Every communication can be decoded. And every threat can be exposed. The Chinese espionage network that operated for 7 years inside America's most sensitive technology facilities was sophisticated, well-resourced, and carefully designed to avoid detection. It employed advanced tradecraft, recruited valuable assets, and achieved extraordinary intelligence success. But it communicated, it sent signals, it used encryption, and NSA Cyber was listening. The 47 operatives are now facing prosecution. The 14 compromised facilities have enhanced their security. The sabotage preparations have been neutralized. The military systems that would have been degraded during conflict are now protected. Thousands of American service members who would have been endangered by sabotaged weapon systems will never know how close they came to disaster. Defense planners who would have faced compromised communications and corrupted databases will never experience the chaos that was planned. The conflict that Chinese strategists believed they could win through sabotage will now be deterred by the knowledge that their covert preparations have been exposed. This is what signal intelligence prevents. Not just theft, not just espionage, but the strategic vulnerabilities that adversaries hope to exploit at moments of maximum danger. NSA Cyber continues monitoring. New networks will emerge. New encryption protocols will be developed. New operations will be planned, and new signals will be intercepted, decoded, and analyzed. The invisible war continues every day. In that war, signals are weapons, encryption is armor, and intelligence is victory. NSA Cyber fights that war, so that the visible conflicts never become catastrophes. Signal detected, decoded, neutralized, protected. The next espionage network is already operating somewhere. Communications are being sent. Intelligence is being stolen. Sabotage is being prepared. NSA Cyber is watching. The signals will be found. The encryption will be broken. The threat will be exposed. That is the mission. That is the commitment. That is NSA Cyber. The lessons from this operation extend far beyond the immediate threat that was neutralized. They reveal fundamental truths about modern espionage and the critical role of signal intelligence in national defense. First, patience is a weapon. The Chinese network operated for 7 years before detection. The operatives were carefully placed over time, building trust and access gradually. The intelligence collection was systematic, targeting specific technologies rather than gathering everything available. This patience made the network extraordinarily valuable, but also created the communication patterns that ultimately led to its exposure. Second, no encryption is permanent. The custom protocol used by Chinese military intelligence was sophisticated, adaptive, and specifically designed to resist American code-breaking capabilities. Its designers believed they had created an unbreakable system. 11 weeks of dedicated analysis proved them wrong. Every encryption system has vulnerabilities. Finding them is a matter of resources, expertise, and persistence. Third, communication is vulnerability. Espionage networks must communicate to function. Handlers must coordinate operatives. Intelligence must be transmitted to those who can use it. Instructions must be sent and acknowledged. Every communication creates opportunity for interception. The more valuable the network, the more it must communicate. The more it communicates, the more signals it generates. The more signals it generates, the more vulnerable it becomes. Fourth, integration creates dependency. The Chinese network achieved extraordinary success by integrating into American technology infrastructure. Operatives worked inside companies, contributed to projects, and gained legitimate access to sensitive systems. This integration made them effective, but also made them dependent on continued communication with their handlers. When those communications were intercepted, the entire network was exposed. These lessons inform ongoing NSA cyber operations. New threats are assessed against these principles. Collection priorities are adjusted based on communication patterns that suggest patience and sophistication. Cryptanalytic resources are focused on protocols that adversaries believe are unbreakable, and the integration of foreign operatives into American institutions is monitored through the signals those operatives must inevitably generate. The shadow war continues. In laboratories and factories across America, technology is being developed that will shape the future of military power. Adversaries seek to steal that technology, to close capability gaps, to prepare for conflicts they hope to win. NSA Cyber stands guard. Every signal intercepted, every communication decoded, every network exposed reduces the advantage that adversaries seek through espionage. The 47 operatives who worked for 7 years inside American technology companies believed they were invisible. They believed their tradecraft was perfect. They believed their encryption was unbreakable. They believed their mission would succeed. They were wrong. NSA Cyber was watching. The signals were intercepted. The encryption was broken. The network was exposed. And the sabotage that could have cost thousands of American lives was prevented before it could be activated. Signal detected, decoded, neutralized, protected. This is signal intelligence. This is NSA Cyber.